I moved to Portugal without knowing the language, or more importantly, how difficult it is to learn the language, and boy, would I not suggest that. I've been here a little over 2 years, and when I'm talking to someone in Portuguese, sometimes I don't know if I've just answered a question or insulted someone's entire family. And to be completely honest, it's not just me, an American immigrant who's bad at learning languages, that thinks that. Every single Portuguese person I've talked to about learning Portuguese has said the same thing, and that's that it's an incredibly difficult language to learn. Yet somehow, this never came up in the research I did about moving to Portugal. And now I've actually heard the very same thing said about learning English as a language, in that it's a very difficult language to learn. And after thinking about it for a bit, I believe that English and Portuguese are difficult languages to learn for very similar reasons. One of my least favorite parts about Portuguese is how similar words sound to each other, like pau, which is bread, and pau, which is stick or a slang word for dick. I can't tell these two apart outside of context, like, not trying to order a dick at a bakery, but how do you even begin with words that sound so similar? And don't even get me started on grandma, avô, and grandpa, avô, because it's been 2 years and I literally just a few days ago learned how to tell them apart when they're written. My boyfriend did teach me a really interesting trick for that. It's the grandfather that always wears the hat. So the one with the hat accent means grandfather, and the one without the hat accent means grandmother. And on top of all the words that sound similar, there's also a lot of grammar rules, and more frustratingly, a lot of exceptions to the grammar rules. In some of my Portuguese tutoring lessons, we've been learning different tenses of verbs, and it feels like for every single tense, which there seems to be at least 5 of, there are different irregular verbs. Some of the words that are irregular in present tense, like fazer and ir, are not irregular in some of the other tenses. My Portuguese tutor showed me the list of verbs that 5th graders in Portugal just need to straight up memorize, and I literally almost cried. It was insane. And all of this becomes so much worse when someone starts to speak at full speed in Portuguese, because once they're going full speed, they're also starting to merge words together. So like, especially the little articles like and ao and things like that, they start to get squished onto the end of the previous word, so it becomes virtually impossible to tell when one word ends and another word starts. So I'm out here listening, and I may catch a big word or two that I recognize, like casa and limpar, but I miss all of the little details and the tenses, the important contextual information that tells you who's being talked about and whether it's something that's happened already or not, because I'm still not good at recognizing the tenses of the verb. So any chance of any type of comprehension that I had goes out the window unless someone is explicitly speaking a little bit slower for me to understand. And I'm certain that these problems exist in English as well. You have words like read, and read, which 2 out of 3 of those are spelled exactly the same and pronounced differently, and one of them is pronounced the same but spelled differently. That's gotta be so incredibly confusing for someone trying to learn English. Like, I cannot even imagine trying to explain the difference between read, and read to someone who's just like, caralho. O inglês é uma merda. And in English, you have rules with so many exceptions that they come with their own sayings, like I before E, except after C, and in neighbor and way. And that song doesn't even cover all of the exceptions. Like, just off the top of my head, we have foreign and weird. And there's also verbs that are just very difficult even for native speakers to conjugate sometimes, like swimmed, swam, and swum. I think it's swam that I'm supposed to use, but honestly, I could not tell you for sure. But oh my god, is it so much different when you're learning a language from birth versus trying to pick it up like now. English, yeah, there's a lot of weird rules, but I have a pretty good grip on them. Portuguese, I'm just sitting here like, what the actual fuck. Honestly, even after 2 years, I'm still struggling to hold a conversation in Portuguese, and this doesn't really come as a huge surprise to me because I'm kind of terrible at languages in general. I have an awful memory, so it takes me a really long time to remember vocab words, and I find it virtually impossible to make my accent sound anything other than whatever kind of American this sounds like. So I know for a fact that I speak Portuguese with possibly the heaviest American accent you'll ever hear in your entire life. So even though I know exactly what word I'm supposed to be saying, exactly how it's spelled, and I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, my American accent just makes it impossible for people to understand what I'm trying to say. And of course, I have not been practicing as much in terms of listening and even speaking as I should be. So those are definitely some of the reasons I'm not as advanced as I would have hoped to be by now. But I also just vastly underestimated how difficult it would be to learn a second language and become fluent enough to exist in like everyday life. I swear at least half of my Portuguese interactions go like this. See? And then I just have to internally pray that I haven't agreed to like rob a bank or something with somebody. Like the sheer amount of times I've tried to order fresh orange juice and ended up with a sumal because I forgot the natural at the end of the sumo de laranja is unreal. And to be fair, getting the wrong flavor orange drink is not even close to the most embarrassing misunderstanding I've had in Portuguese while I've lived here. But those are for later videos, so if you'd like to learn more about my life in Portugal and some of the struggles I've had along the way, please follow along. And if you've had any embarrassing misunderstandings yourself while learning a language, please, please, please share them in the comments. Then we can commiserate about how difficult it is to learn a language together and feel less alone in our struggles of trying to communicate in a second language.